My beautiful girl, Thea. She's an ambassador for guide dogs. She's perfect. But I want to welcome all of the folks here in our audience, as well as those of you who are online. So I'm going to ask everybody in the audience to turn around and give a wave to all of our, virtual guests here today. It's wonderful to have such an extensive audience. I want to first thank each and every one of you. Without your support and the variety of support that we have, we could not do our job. We are so dependent upon our communities for the work that we do. And so thank you all for being here in support of our mission. So we have a very exciting topic today. We're going to be talking about the making of a guide dog. I am excited about that because I'm going to brag just a little bit here that Guide Dogs for the Blind takes 3 to 4 months to train a dog with all of its guide skills. Now, that is the shortest time period anywhere in the world. There's about 100 different guide dog organizations on a worldwide basis. And Guide Dogs for the Blind, our training and the work that we do with our dogs is considered the best in the world. So we're the shortest, and our dogs are considered the best trained. And becoming a guide dog is not easy. In order to be a guide dog, it really is the most challenging of all services because a guide dog has to do everything right all the time. I like to say I could never be a guide dog because I cannot do everything right all the time. And we'll get into all of these things. But Guide Dogs has an incredible program. I want to give a shout out to our puppy raisers because I hear this over and over and over again from our guide dog mobility instructors. The only way that we are able to do what we do with training in 3 to 4 months is because of the preparation that our puppy raisers do. So it's really, a joint effort that takes place, and that combination and the relationship between our puppy raisers and our trainers is really critical. So thank you to our puppy raisers because you allow us to do what we do. So we will have a question and answer period after the presentation. For those of you who are in our online audience, feel free to type in your questions into the chat. And for those of you in our studio audience, all you need to do is put up your hand and somebody will come around with a microphone. So on that note, I am so honored to have Vanessa Lyons, who is our Director of Training and Field Services on our California campus. Vanessa has been with Guide Dogs for 25 years, and she leads one of the largest teams providing guide dog training and field service anywhere in the world. So she's a pretty impressive lady. So welcome, Vanessa. Thank you for being here. And we're just going to jump right on in. So can you tell us about, just sort of give us an overview about the 8 phases of training?
I would love to, Chris. Hello, everyone. And Chris, thank you for having me today. It is my pleasure to be here and talk about our guide dog training program. As you know, it all begins, just like Chris was describing, with the dogs coming back to our campus or being recalled to campus, as we call it. And this happens almost every month on each of our campuses. A group of dogs comes in for their training. And you'd think, we do that with a routine. You do that enough, it could be something that becomes mundane, maybe a little boring. But it's actually quite the opposite. There's always a little buzz on campus during recall weekend. And I think it's a special time. The dogs have been so well prepared by our puppy raisers. they are so willing and they're ready to learn. They're ready to learn more. Our staff team is really excited to meet each dog, learn who they are as individuals, and we really want to support each dog with what they need so they can learn best and enjoy their time here on campus. And then, of course, our puppy raisers, I think they're in a position that's similar to parents dropping their kid off at college.
Right.
They know it's time. It's time for that kid to, continue on in their journey and figure out who they are in life, right? And they're going to miss them terribly at the same time. And then I think there's some pep talks and little crossing of fingers, like, please don't make too many mistakes. So there's a lot of fun energy, a lot of emotion and anticipation, and it's a great weekend, recall weekend, that we get to do over and over again. Our 8 phases of training is what's contained as part of our guide dog training program. And our training is really centered around maximizing positive reinforcement. So, Chris, we're using food reward and verbal and physical praise and toys. And we're starting with the problems and behaviors being very simple, and then we build from there, really focusing on all the places we can use positive reinforcement as a dog is learning. And I mentioned 8 phases. We have a very set program. It's a proven program, as you mentioned. It is, we have a very specific training calendar that we follow. And a lot of dogs move through that program as it's designed. But we also have the ability to make adjustments because dogs are individual learners, just like people. So each instructor, with the dogs they are working with, they are constantly evaluating, what does this dog need today? What does this dog need this week and beyond? So we have the ability to repeat lessons, break things down more simply, and then go from there. So it really is customized at the same time, which is a great thing. So let's jump right into the phases. The first phase really happens here just on campus. So the dogs have, they've become acclimated to campus life, or they're in that process. They've been assigned to their instructor. They're starting to work with their instructor. And all that we're teaching them during this phase is really the foundation of what's to come. So they're learning, we're practicing obedience behaviors like sit, down, and stay, come, those kinds of things, but also more general concepts that apply to their guide work training down the line. They also wear their guide dog harness for the first time. They get exposed to that. And then we move into phase 2, and that's where guide work begins. So that's where the instructors travel off of campus with the dogs for their lessons in town, and they begin to learn what guide work is all about. And we're really patterning or guiding each dog through the routine of guide work. So walking down the sidewalk in a straight line, moving around obstacles, stopping at the start and stop of each street or intersection, if you will, making turns, traveling at a consistent speed. And we're showing the dogs how to do this, rewarding the behaviors that we desire, and then the dogs start to generalize those behaviors and show us their understanding.
That's great.
So that's phase 2. We get right into guide work.
Yes.
Yeah.
And then let's talk about phases 3 and 4.
Yes. So in phase 3, we're practicing, repeating those guide work and obedience behaviors. And the dogs start to generalize those behaviors and can perform them in a variety of environments. And phase 3 culminates with a sort of a check-in, if you will, on how the dogs are doing with their basic guide work and obedience skills. So that entails a preliminary guide work test, we call it, and a preliminary obedience test. And the guide work test involves the instructor being under a sleep shade or a blindfold. And it's about a 20-minute route where they perform guide work. They have a spotter who's also testing them, ensuring they're safe. And we're looking for the dog to demonstrate those basic guide work skills. And then similarly, there's the preliminary obedience test that happens here on campus. And that is a routine where they're demonstrating that sit, stay, down, come, heel, just those basic commands. And then we're going to build from there. But that's phase 3. Yeah. And then that's a pivotal point, because we don't want to, from there we're going to be adding concepts on top of those basic skills. So we want to ensure each dog has a solid understanding of the basic skills. And then we get into phase 4. Yeah.
Uh-oh.
So phase 4, we start to travel to different areas, maybe more complex areas, and practice guide work in those areas. And it might include things like riding public transportation. The dogs, they start to learn what their responses are around traffic. And that's all very choreographed with a staff member in a car, but they start to be exposed to those kinds of lessons as well. Yeah.
So, our sort of training program it's layered, right? We're building, off of a foundation. And what are just some of those skills that we're really building into a guide dog?
Yeah. So if we, sort of in the most simple terms, what a guide dog does is lead a person from point A to point B in a straight line, avoiding obstacles, or if the way is, you can't pass by an obstacle, it's too tight of an area, then they would indicate that obstacle to their handler before moving on. Stopping at any elevation change, like a curb at the start and stop of a street. But we all know sometimes curbs are blended, so it's not always an elevation change, but start and stop of an intersection or street. And back to obstacles, also overhead obstacles as well. So that's, in the most basic terms, what a guide dog does.
Right.
Yeah.
And we have a video.
We do.
We have a video that is sort of demonstrating these skills that a guide dog is learning. And Vanessa is going to talk us through this video. You'll see on the screen.
Yeah, so this is a video of Cologne, one of our guide dog mobility instructors. And she's training a yellow lab named Future. And right away, you'll see that they've found an obstacle. So this obstacle is covering enough of the path that Future has made the decision to indicate it to Cologne rather than just going by. Cologne found it, rewarded her, and they're off again. And you can see Future's eager to work. She's pulling into the harness consistently. Cologne's giving her some direction because there's multiple lines of travel there. And they've come to a street. Future has stopped. Cologne detects the edge of the street and rewards her, and then gives her the command to cross. You'll see them stop on the other side as well. What a good girl. And they're off again. And their destination is a bench here. And they're going to take a moment to get settled. Dogs love destinations. It's what makes their work purposeful, right? So today it's a bench, but you could imagine that's, the grocery store, your appointment, your workplace, whatever your routine entails. So that was a brief pause because of the video, and they're off again to go back to that same street crossing. And Future does such a nice job indicating each time, consistently, the stop and start of that crossing. Now they're going to move through the courtyard And next, they're going to come up to an overhead obstacle. We have these great obstacles in the center of our campus where we can kind of choose our own feature, if you will, our own adventure. And Kelowna has set up that overhead for this lesson. And that little demo is over. She's inviting Future up onto the wall to have a little snuggle. And you'll see that Future is so affectionate. She loves Cologne, giving her the kisses. Oh, really a cute moment. And it's important to call out that, we're talking about the phases of training and some of the nuts and bolts of what a guide dog does and learns. But it really is about the relationship between the pair, the dog and the person, whether that's Cologne training the dog, but also ultimately the client. That's where it's how it all comes together. Yeah.
And I'm always struck by the incredible relationship that our guide dog mobility instructors strike with each of their dogs. And I know from our puppy raisers' perspective, that's important too, because they come from a very, very loving home into the arms of a very, very loving guide dog mobility instructor. And you can see that between Cologne and Future there, right?
Yes.
Yeah. So let's also talk about some of the unique abilities of a guide dog.
Yes, being a guide dog, as you referenced earlier, it's not easy. We are really looking for a dog with the ideal mix of confidence in a variety of environments, right? As a guide dog, you might be in a big city, you might be on a quiet suburban street, going for an exercise walk, and everything in between, all kinds of public places, traveling, and so a guide dog really needs to be comfortable in a variety of environments. And at the same time, that dog needs to be manageable enough to be appropriate in those environments as well, and work willingly and be easily motivated by their handler. And so that's not every dog, that unique combination. And that's really the secret, the temperament that we're really looking for. Guide dogs also learn a skill that no other service dog learns, and that's intelligent disobedience. Mm-hmm. And I know we talked about, we wanted to talk about that more today.
Yes, we do.
Yes.
We use that term, and maybe you can first define what it is, and then how does that manifest itself within our guide dogs?
Yes. So when we say intelligent disobedience, that's when if a handler gave a cue to their dog and it wasn't safe to respond to that cue, we say the dog is intelligently disobeying, I'm putting it in air quotes. So they're making the choice. Mm-hmm. That this isn't the thing to do right now, let's pause. And often that response is just holding still. So a great example that I think a lot of us can relate to, because I think it happens to many pedestrians, is imagine you're at your down curb and you're gonna cross the street. You're waiting for your turn. The light changes, and you go to cross, and that right turner beats you to it and cuts you off. That happens really commonly.
It does.
And for a blind handler, they are listening to traffic, that flow of traffic, to decide when to cross. But that right turner, perhaps they weren't able to detect that car because of the other traffic noise. It could be a quiet car. Mm-hmm. And it would be impossible there's no audible signal no audible cue for that car. So in that case, the dog is aware that car is hovering there and waiting. And when the car initiates the movement, the dog would notice that and either just not respond, not go into the street, or if they've started, stop. That would be ideal. It just depends on the timing of everything, what that looks like. But a really common everyday example of intelligent disobedience.
And what I find amazing about that, I mean, that's one of the very unique skills of a guide dog. It's one of the toughest skills because if I'll put it in, excuse me, in human terms, right? How often do we say no to our bosses? Not very often. It takes a lot of courage to do that, right? To say no. You know, I've been told to do something and I'm going to say no, I'm not going to do it. And that's what we're asking our dogs to do with that intelligent disobedience. They've been given a command. They understand, excuse me, they realize that that command is going to put their person in harm's way, and so they disobey it, right? And
That's right.
That's pretty amazing for our dogs to do. And I think it's pretty amazing the way that our trainers are able to train our dogs to do that.
Yeah.
Takes,
It's a complex concept.
very complex.
And we start in a very basic way and build from there. But it is complex. And, you know, I think people make mistakes, dogs make mistakes. That's real life. But with a guide dog, as you pointed out at the beginning, you know, if you make a mistake, in the worst case scenario, it can be about safety.
It can be.
As
It can
much
be
as it
fatal.
is about
Yeah.
efficient and smooth travel. So, yeah, a serious part of the job.
Very serious. Well, let's talk about phases 6 and 7, 5, 6, and 7. Yeah.
Yes. So the dogs at this point have demonstrated, like I said before, the basic skills of being a guide dog. And we keep working on those, but in a variety of environments. And then we start adding additional things like riding escalators and the technique involved in that, elevators, different kinds of stairs. I mentioned riding the bus. We head into the city and we ride the light rail and underground train. Working along a train platform is another environment that's new with its own variables. So that's involved. Again, we keep practicing responses around traffic, as we've referenced. And when it comes to obstacles, we've talked about those, and we saw Cologne with like obstacles that aren't moving, they're fixed. But the world has dynamic moving obstacles as well,
Yeah.
which is another really challenging part of the job because of the variables involved. So if we think about pedestrians, people, we can be kind of unpredictable when we're moving down the street. We might speed up, we might slow down, we might like be distracted by our phones, we might suddenly turn into a store. And so a guide dog is navigating all of that and trying to figure out where's my, if I can't pass by somebody, when does enough space open up that I can then move around? And that can be really dynamic. So all kinds of things like that are what happen in phases 5, 6, and 7. And I'm like, what am I missing? There's more, I know it. Sidewalkless is another skill. So some clients will, you know, they might live or travel in an area that does not have sidewalks. Maybe picture a neighborhood that doesn't have sidewalks. So the dogs learn how to travel on the side of the road and indicate parked cars and other obstacles before moving around. And crossing streets there is a little bit different as well. So a separate skill, if you will, or we're translating guide work to that kind of environment. Yeah.
So, you know, I listen to all of this and I get confused. I can't remember all the skills, you know? So it is a lot that we're asking our guide dogs to do. They are pretty amazing dogs, right?
They are.
And being able to do all of that and keep, you know, our clients safe as they travel through their life, right?
Yeah.
So phase 8 is our final testing phase. And it's divided into 5 categories. So maybe you can talk about what those categories are and what that final testing is.
Yes. So phase 8 brings a series of tests. There are 5 of them. Obedience is one of them, and that is about assessing the dog's responses to various obedience commands, and also in a really practical way. So we simulate someone coming up to greet the handler and dog, asking to pet the dog and petting the dog, passing another dog, sitting at a table, and we simulate someone, like a server coming up with a plate of food and setting the food down, food dropping onto the ground, and the dog is remaining in position. The dog can be easily positioned on either side of the handler, under the chair. So really practical behaviors that you might term obedience, but really we're aiming to practice the things that really apply directly to a client's life and would be useful for them. We also demonstrate in that test, we're assessing how a dog responds to grooming, ear cleaning, teeth brushing, all the basic things to keep them healthy and happy. And can they be loose and run and play and fetch a toy and come back to the handler?
Yep.
So those are the big highlights. Yeah. That's the obedience test. And the other 4 tests are all guide work related. So there's a general guide work test. And this route is demonstrating those basic skills, but with, we want to see some, like a longer route than like at that preliminary level. So we've built up to about 45 minutes in length a route with different features, different lengths of crossings, stairs, that kind of thing. And then we have a building route. So that route incorporates escalators, elevators, stairs, an indoor environment, and the variables that can bring. A traffic route is the next test. And so that's a choreographed route, again, with a staff member in the car. And we have the car presented in a variety of ways to the team that's working during that route, and we'll assess a dog's responses to how the car is presented. And then lastly, a sidewalkless route. I mentioned that before, so we're assessing how a dog travels in that kind of environment because it is a little bit different than being on a sidewalk. Through all of these tests, the handler is under sleep shade, and the tester is also serving as a spotter to keep them safe while conducting the assessment. And yeah, it's a quick overview of the five tests.
And and all of this is done in 12 to 16 weeks. It's pretty amazing.
Yeah.
It's pretty amazing when you think about it. And then I'll call it the final phase, which is now matching, right? Which is really special, right? Finding the right client for each one of our dogs, or the right dog for each one of our clients. And I like to say it's both science and art, or science and magic, because there's a little bit of magic that goes into every single pairing. So maybe you can talk a little bit more about that. You'll do a better job than I.
Oh, no, I love it. I love how you described it. Yes, phase 8, there's the tests that I mentioned, but we are also looking at the dog holistically. And because it's one thing to learn the specific behaviors involved and demonstrate those behaviors, and another, again, to do so really comfortably and confidently and in a focused way as a guide dog. And we're looking at their health and everything that goes into that dog and making the determination that, yes, they are ready to be matched with a client. And at this point, we know a lot about this dog, right? from our hands-on experience and our guide dog training program, but also all of the information we've received from the puppy raiser. So we have lots of details on the dog side. And then on the client side, we have our whole application process that the client has moved through, and a lot of detail is captured there as well. We visit each client, as you know, Chris, in their home environment and interview them, so to speak, and we learn about their lifestyle, their routine, how they might interact with a dog and communicate with a dog, what pace they're comfortable traveling at, and all of the particulars that go into them as an individual as well. And then we look across, the dogs we have available for each person, and we make the best match. And there is a science to it, and there's an art to it, and our instructors and our supervisors are really skilled at this part of the process. But I also think, sometimes we think we can control everything, but there's a little magic in there too. Kismet, serendipity, whatever you want to call it, that sometimes we don't even know what's happening until we look back and we go, oh, yep. They're meant to be together. Yeah.
I'll just relay a story. I was up in Oregon. This was a few months ago, and I was having dinner with our clients, and one of our clients who was training was relaying this story to me. She was getting her third guide dog from Guide Dogs, and she was talking to me about her first guide dog and the fact that it was really her father who was instrumental in her getting her first guide dog, and she was always so grateful to her father for doing that. And after she had first gotten her first guide dog, she was home, visiting her parents, and her dad was out in the garden with her brother, and they were planting strawberries. And unfortunately, her father had a major heart attack and passed away. But what she always, basically the symbol of her father was always a strawberry. So she had a strawberry tattooed, on her arm, coming into class because she felt that her dad was going to be with her spiritually in class for this third guide dog. She had strawberries painted on each of her nails. Her nails were beautiful. And guess what the name of her dog was? Strawberry.
We didn't know any of that.
We didn't know any of that. So that's the magic, I think, that seems to happen with every single pairing. So the powers that be, I don't know.
Yeah, I just got the chills.
Yes, I do too. I have trouble talking about this without, tearing up. But on that note, I think we're ready for some questions.
Okay, just wanted to grab the microphone. We have some questions that are coming in online from our live stream audience, but first, how about our in-person audience? Are there any questions immediately before? Okay, let me get the microphone to you.
Hi. So when you get the puppy, when you raise the puppy, how long does it take for the training to start? Is it at the same time?
Do you want to talk about the puppy raising?
Yes.
Yeah.
So let me know if I'm not answering your question exactly. Where puppies go to our puppy raisers, they leave our puppy center and go to our puppy raisers around 8 to 10 weeks of age. And our puppy raisers follow our puppy raising program. There's a whole community and a lot of support around our puppy raisers. And the raising of that puppy begins really in the puppy center, but yes, right when they meet their puppy raiser. And then they return to our campus for their formal training at about 14, 15 months of age. It depends on the individual dog, again, but that's a general guideline.
Okay.
Yes. Did I
Thank
answer
you.
your question?
Yes.
Okay,
Thank
very
you.
good.
Okay, let be Ariel. I'll hand the microphone to you.
In the past, for that initial phase of training when you're teaching the dogs how to pull and harness, there was a point where you used treadmills, and I was wondering if that was still part of the practice.
Oh, that's a great question. Yes, in phase one, but it could be a tool that's incorporated at any point, really. We will show the dogs how to walk on a treadmill, and they'll wear their harness. And first, we are not holding the harness handle, we're just getting them acclimated to walking on the treadmill. That goes well. They get food rewards along the way, and that goes well. Then we'll have another session where we'll start to pick up that harness handle, and it's a helpful experience for the dogs to learn how to sort of like move fluidly. They find their pace and pull into the harness with a straight body for the first time, and we get to reward. So yes, treadmill is still a tool that we use. Yes. Thanks, Ariel.
We have an online question. You mentioned all the things that a guide dog can do. What can't a guide dog do?
Oh, Mythbusters here. Yes. Yes, a common one that we'll hear, and if you don't know, you don't know. So it makes sense that someone might think this. But some people will ask, does a guide dog, or how does the guide dog read traffic lights? Yeah. Another one is sort of an assumption, I think, that the dog knows how to find wherever the client wants to go. It's like sort of like, take me home, kind of command or cue, if you will. So it's important to talk about the partnership that is required with traveling with a guide dog. Sometimes that work that a team is doing looks so fluid, so smooth, that you as a outside bystander can't even tell all the communication that's happening between the pair. An analogy that might work for some is, you get into the back of a car and your driver is there and you say, "Home, James," and you check out of the process. That's what it can sometimes look like, or people can assume it's like. But what working with a guide dog is really like is more like you get in the back of the car and you have your driver and you are giving the driver play-by-play instructions for the route you want to travel to get home. So we're going to go up to the next street. Okay, here we're going to turn right, and you are navigating. You are giving those instructions. Now the driver might speed up and slow down and move around a hazard in the road, but it takes both parties to get home. So just an analogy, if that helps.
That's a great
describe. Yeah.
Thanks, Vanessa. Okay, well, I await for a hand to be raised here in the audience. Another online question is, you were talking about intelligent disobedience. So in training a dog for intelligent disobedience, how do you prepare the dog to avoid electric cars, those silent automobiles we have? How do you work with electric cars and guide dog training?
For the dog, one way to explain it might be we go through this choreographed exercise initially, showing them how to respond appropriately to how the car is presented. So a car pulling into a driveway in front of you or cutting you off at the corner, like I described earlier, as two examples. And we practice that with all kinds of cars, a regular gas engine car, a hybrid car, and electric vehicle. So for the dog, it becomes less about what kind of car that is and more about the context, how the car is presented. So they've generalized separate from what kind of car it is. Yeah. I hope that answers the question.
Yeah,
for
no, that's
that.
great. Thank you. Oh, we have a question in the audience.
As the dogs are progressing through the 8 phases, are they tested after each phase to see if they're going to progress or be dropped, or how does that work?
That's a great question. So our formal tests or sort of check-in points is that phase 3, that preliminary test, and then phase 8, all of the final tests that I described. And at the same time, we are constantly assessing and evaluating how it's going for that individual dog. So at any point of the process, we might adjust the training plan. We might feel like we have worked through all that we need to do to make the determination that this dog is not going to become a guide dog. And maybe they become a canine buddy or have another career path or be a wonderful pet. But that can really happen at any point of the process because we're constantly looking at how is this individual dog doing and what's right for them. Yeah.
Okay, I'll go to we have another in-person audience question? Oh, okay, here we go. Sorry, didn't see. There's the mic.
Thank you. When the trainers are working with the dogs, is the pace of that dog a natural pace that the dog determines, or is the trainer able to teach a pace to a dog?
Ooh, that's an interesting question, Diane. I like it. So in the early stages of training, that phase 2, especially when we're first showing a dog what guide work is all about, we are teaching the dog how to, by patterning, how to travel at a consistent speed, and we are stepping out and encouraging that consistent speed, and then evaluating how the dog does. Where is their how do they move at the speed we're patterning them at? So for some dogs, that might be they're trotting. For some dogs, they are pacing. It's just a different gait. And for some dogs, that's walking. But we are encouraging this consistent speed, figuring out what speed that is. And all of that translates to how they're pulling in the harness as well. So it can get complex. Yeah. So as training progresses, we're, again, wanting to aim for that consistent lead into the harness and a consistent speed. And we have dogs that there's really a range of speeds that the dogs travel at. There's dogs that ultimately will travel at a slower speed to kind of middle of the road, what we call moderate, to faster, in the faster range. And it just kind of depends on the dog. But to get at what you were really asking, I think, can you teach a dog? I think it's both. I think we are teaching the dog how to travel at a purposeful, consistent speed, and that might be faster than they would normally just like walk down the sidewalk. But then the dog also has to be comfortable structurally and mentally traveling at that speed. So it's kind of both coming together that ends up determining what pace they travel at. Yeah.
Thank you. Question here, correct?
Sure. The dog types, what has been the most successful type of dog that you've used for training? Back labs or other dogs, or do you ever look at other types of dogs for training to be a guide dog?
Yes, so we train Labrador retrievers, golden retrievers, and then a cross between the two. And we have found over the years that these are the breeds that are the most versatile and the most successful for us. They are so willing. They love food. That food reward is king, right? So they're easy to motivate, even though we have other things to motivate them with as well, depending on what they like best. And they're a really great size for a guide dog. They have the double coat, so they have an undercoat and an outer coat. That means they're better positioned to be comfortable in a variety of climates. Where it's really hot, they're gonna stay cooler, really warm, or really cold, they're gonna stay warmer. So those, I hope I'm answering your question. Those are the breeds that we have found are the most versatile and really match well with our clients and their lifestyles. Yeah.
Thank you.
And actually, if you look on a worldwide basis, 80% of all service dogs, not only guide dogs, but other types of service, use labs and golden retrievers as well. So it's sort of, they're the proven breeds
Yes.
that work the best for this type of work.
Question here.
You mentioned the temperament of the dogs and matching it with the client. And I was wondering, do you train the dog to have the temperaments that they have, or is that part of the training process? Because all the guide dogs seem so calm and attentive. They have a personality kind of, so.
Yeah, that's a great question. It all starts with our amazing breeding program. So we have great clay, if you will, at the very beginning, temperament-wise, in these dogs because of our really careful breeding program. And then our puppy raisers are molding that clay from the beginning to have a dog that's really wonderful to be around and live with. And then we apply the training on top of that. But our jobs are as easy as they are because of really starting with this dog that is born to be a guide dog. Chris, I don't know if you want to add to any of that.
Sure. I think one of the conversations we will be doing sometime in the future is talking about our breeding program, because it's really, that's the start of these really, really incredible dogs. I mean, we've had, our own breeding colony now for over 50 years. We breed for temperament. We breed for health. The labs and the goldens that come from guide dogs for the blind are not like what you're going to see in the real world. We're breeding for that confidence. We're breeding for that calmness. The fact that a Labrador Retriever can take on this incredible job at 18 months of age. How many people know of Labrador Retrievers? You know labs in the real world at 18 months, they're, oh my God. They're kind of crazy. They're wonderful dogs, but they're kind of crazy. So, all of that really starts at our breeding program. We start socializing our puppies at 5 days of age. And that progresses for the 8 to 10 weeks that they're with us here in our puppy center. Far more socialization that puppies are going to get in the real world. And then our puppy raisers are incredible with the work that they do. They continue that. So all of that creates that unique being that eventually becomes a guide dog. Yeah.
A quick online question that I'll get to the individual in the front row. A couple of questions around find commands. Find the chair, find the door. Vanessa, can you talk a little bit about the training process that goes into finding a chair or finding a door or finding a bench?
Yes, I'd love to. So in the final near the final stages of training, we will introduce the dogs to finding an obstacle that might be helpful for their handler in the future, so that they understand that concept. And then we teach, I think I lost.
No,
We're good?
We're good.
Okay. And then we teach our clients that same technique so that they can customize things with their dog once they get home. So if, for example, if finding a particular ATM is meaningful, or a particular bus stop, or pole where there's an audible pedestrian signal, they can apply that same technique and customize things with their dog. The basics of guide work training is to avoid those things, right? Keep going, move around the obstacles, but sometimes you want to find something, the trash can to throw away the poop bag, as in another example. So that's a sort of a more advanced concept that's layered on later in the dog's training, and a client continues depending on what's meaningful for them.
That's great, thank you.
This is an odd question. Considering all the work for socialization and broadening this dog's view of the world, is there any expectation that a guide dog would provide some element of protection, personal protection, in a situation that the dog understands there's some danger? Maybe it's not built in. I don't know, but it seems as though if, as an older single woman, maybe going someplace with a friend at night, you might be in a situation which you may be compromised. Is there any expectation that the dog would be part of the protection of that individual?
Yes, there's no expectation and no training of any sort that goes into our dogs in that way. But many of our clients will say traveling with a dog, just the nature of traveling with a dog, makes them feel like they are more protected because they're with another being, and other people will see a dog and yeah, maybe choose to go a different way. I think most people are drawn to dogs, but they are just naturally could provide that kind of comfort. And when should an incident happen, they are dogs, even though they are bred to be mellow and calm and accepting of all kinds of people. There could be a situation where some sort of instinct kicks in and being a dog takes over, but no training of any sort that goes into that. Yeah, no expectation. Yeah.
Thank you.
Hi, thank you so much for that lovely story about Strawberry. How long do dogs generally stay with their partner, and when do you make the determination to go with a new dog?
Very good. Yes, the average length of time that a team will stay together is in that 7-8 year range. I think currently it's closer to 8 years, but that's sort of the normal range. And then it depends on the individual team, individual dog, and how they're doing. I referenced, that an instructor is constantly evaluating how a dog is doing in their learning, and that type of awareness of how a dog is doing continues with the client. So they are together even, all the time, pretty much, right? They live together. They're so in tune to each other. A client is going to be aware when something seems different or off. And so that should that kind of start to happen as a dog ages, as an example, we're here to support our clients in noticing those signs as well, determining if those signs are indicative of it's time to retire, or we need to start planning for that, or what kind of adjustments a client might be able to make to ensure their dog is still comfortable, shortening routes, that kind of thing, pretty standard. So yes, I hope I've answered your question. Yeah, very good.
Okay, we have another question here.
So I want to take you back to the stop sign or the light. Do they read color? Do the dogs have now ready to cross the street? How do they know that the light is okay? Red,
Oh,
green.
I'm glad you asked for clarification. Yes, okay. So when a guide dog team is at the down curb, it is the handler who is reading traffic, as we say. So they are paying attention to the patterns of traffic. This direction goes first, then this direction, there might be an advance left. It can be very complex, but they are listening to traffic and then deciding when it's time to go. And the dog receives the command and off they go. Yeah, so the dog is not reading the light, the dog is not determining when it's safe to go. It's all the person. Yeah, thank you for asking that. I'm sorry that wasn't clear.
Let me get individual.
Hi. How do you go about pairing dogs with instructors when they go into formal training?
That's an interesting question. Pull back the curtain a little bit.
Yeah.
So it ends up being random in a lot of ways. An instructor might work with any dog that is assigned to a particular string. We call it a string when a group of dogs moves through training. But you probably saw me hesitating there because from time to time we have taken different approaches where we'll try to someone might be able to select one of their dogs. They've met all the dogs and they select a dog. Or we'll try to spread out maybe a litter. If we have multiple dogs from a litter, spread those out amongst a group of instructors. So there are different little approaches like that, but really in the grand scheme of things, it's any instructor can work with any dog. Yeah.
I think we have time for one more question. Here's a question that came in online. We talked a lot about the skills required for the dog. What skills are required for the human to qualify for a guide dog?
Yes. Yes, we've referenced that this is really a partnership and the communication that needs to happen between the pair. And so the person has to come into the equation with the skills to travel independently. And so they've demonstrated the ability to do that with their cane. And so we call that orientation and mobility skills. So the ability to know where you are in space and where you need to go and to travel there independently. So each client has their own routine and their own routes, as we might call it, at home. And that's part of our interview process is understanding their skill set. And then when we go visit them in person, they'll demonstrate one of their normal routes. And we'll follow along. And then we'll also bring out, you guys have probably heard of Juno, who is our empty harness, if you will, that an instructor will play the part of the dog simulating how that all works. And we'll practice utilizing O&M skills while working with the dog and starting to learn that process during the assessment as well.
Thanks, Vanessa. Thanks, Chris. Chris, I'm going to turn this back to you.
Great. Well, thank you, Larry. And thank you, Vanessa. She did a great job, right? Yes, thank you. Thank you. It's always such a pleasure. I always like to end on a note where I can read something from one of our clients. And the fact that we just talked about the partnership and how important the partnership is to making a successful team. This lovely email that I received recently from one of our clients speaks so eloquently to that. So I'm going to sort of wrap us up on this note. So it's titled The Holistic Benefits of Guide Dog Partnership. In harness, my guide dog Gleam certainly leads with her heart while once again following my every gesture to deliver me safely to work, doctor's appointments, and places of joy. She meets me where I am, responding to the strength of my voice. Confidence and consistency are key with this one. We are exponentially stronger as a team when I believe in both of us. And when I'm unsure, she opens doors to others' hearts so I can open mine in turn. She leads by example like the best of teachers, showing me boundless patience, compassion, and deep love that I don't always have the courage to give myself. She does not judge. She does not criticize. Her loyalty does not falter. As I lay here this morning feeling Gleam snuggled close to my back, offering her healing warmth, I feel such gratitude for the moment and for all the healing work she has done without my realization. Just she often guides me around obstacles on the street without my knowing. GDB partnered me with Gleam as a means of seeing. She's actually a source for being. Sorry. Anyways, thank you all for being here today. Thank you for your support. We cannot do this job without you. Guide Dogs for the Blind does not charge for its services. We receive no government funding. We're completely dependent upon the support of our communities. So if you are interested in supporting this mission and would like to make a donation, you can do so online. There is a donation button online for our virtual attendees today, or for those of you here, you can see some QR codes around the room. You're welcome to make a gift through the QR code. A special shout out to our Legacy Society members. Our Legacy Society are individuals who have made a gift to GDB through their estate plans. And we very much appreciate your gift in doing that because you assure the future of our organization through our Legacy Society. And a very special shout out to our puppy raisers because we could not do this job, without you. So thank you very much. Thank you all for being here today. It takes a huge community in order to make this mission work. We appreciate your support because really together we're unstoppable. So thank you.